Governor Ducey of Arizona just had his latest COVID-related press conference. And out of this, we have got another new executive order. And as I like to do, I like to give you the actual order without the commentary and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'll give you a little bit of commentary, obviously. But I always like to present the order so that people can see it, see what it actually says, as opposed to what a reporter tells you it says. But this is the executive order that literally just came out within the last hour. Governor Ducey had a press conference and has decided that we are going to go ahead and start another shutdown. It is not going to be as severe as the previous shutdown, but it is going to shut down. Well, we'll get down to here so you can just see it as it says. This is effective today. So it's effective June 29th, 2020. And it says organized public events of more than 50 people are prohibited unless the city, town, or county in unincorporated areas has approved the event and only if adequate safety precautions are implemented. So I'm doubting many city, towns, or counties are going to approve these events. So it looks like any event over 50 people is now canceled, such as they were to begin with, because I don't know how many events of that magnitude were even in the works. Department of Liquor Licenses and Control shall cease issuing Series 15 special event licenses. So that basically applies to festivals and fairs. This is, again, the period is from June 29th through July 27th. Basically, this order is going to apply for a month. It says, notwithstanding any other law or executive order, effective 8 p.m. on Monday, June 29th, the following establishments shall pause operations. Now, this is really, by the way, this is really ironic. I'm going to tell you why it's ironic, at least for me personally, after I mentioned the businesses that have to close tonight at 8 o'clock. So bars, meaning any entity who holds a Series 6 or 7 liquor license from the Department of Liquor Licenses and Control, whose primary business is the sale or dispensing of alcoholic beverages, these entities may continue to serve the public through pickup, delivery, and drive-through operations as provided for Series 12 liquor license in the previous executive order. Indoor gyms and fitness clubs are now closed again. Indoor movie theaters are now closed again. And water parks and tubing operators are closed again. What I find interesting about this is that as far as indoor movie theaters go, there was only a handful of them that were open. So I think the idea that they were contributing somehow to the increased COVID outbreak in Arizona is ridiculous. There are literally only a handful of movie theaters that are open right now, and most of them I think opened like last week. So I think that this is terrible because I don't think it applies. Again, we were talking about scientific data and all that kind of thing. Movie theaters are not contributing to the outbreak. AMC and Harkins are the largest movie theater chains in Arizona. Neither one of them is open. Neither one of them. So I don't see the problem with having a few private theaters that are open and people can decide whether they want to go or not. Indoor gyms and fitness clubs. I want to address this because this is the irony for me personally. I've been having a nightmare getting rid of my gym membership from UFIT. UFIT has been closed the entire time since before the governor issued his first executive order in Arizona. So since before that, UFIT was quote unquote proactive, and they closed about, I think, a week before the governor closed down all the gyms. I have been struggling trying to get rid of my UFIT membership. I can't get them on the phone. Their corporate number will not answer me, and they will not return my emails. There was finally one UFIT in the entire Phoenix metro area that opened. So I called them, and I was able to get a credit from them so that basically future months I will not be charged. I said, I don't want a credit. I want a refund, and I want to end my membership because I felt that they had treated me so badly. They told me the only way that I could actually terminate my membership was to go in person because they needed my signature. And it's like, okay. So I told them I will be coming in this week to terminate my membership. Well, guess what, Pete? I can't do that now, apparently, because they're going to be shut down as of 8 p.m. today. So the it just boggles my mind the unintended consequences from some of these orders sometimes. Because
Yeah, I'll be honest though, I don't think that's legal, regardless of whether these indoor gyms and fitness clubs are open. I don't think that, if you were to somehow spread the word about a class action lawsuit, I think they would knock it off pretty quickly, because that is absolutely ridiculous.
well, I'm surprised that there isn't a class action lawsuit. There are
Nope.
several major fitness center chains that have declared bankruptcy. So that there's
Yeah.
several chains that are going the way of the dodo, and I actually anticipate UFIT might be one of them very soon.
Hmm.
But I'm at the point where I'm considering filing a complaint with the Arizona Attorney General because
Hmm.
this is ridiculous. I also
Be a
need
place to start. Yeah.
I,
I mean, put out an ad, or talk to a lawyer and have him put out an ad for UFIT members. Sounds like the way to start.
but again, I would also point out that in terms of fitness clubs, again, as I just mentioned, UFIT's not open, and UFIT is one of the larger chains in the valley. There are at least two chains I know of. I can't remember which ones off the top of my head that have closed. One of the few that was open was LA Fitness, and of course, several independent gyms that opened. I really
Hmm.
don't believe that gyms are what are the major contributing factor to the rise of COVID in Arizona, because there's just too few of them that are open. I know that there was an example in one state. I can't remember where it was, where they said that they had an outbreak of something like 80 people from a gym, but that has not been shown in Arizona. And again, most of the gyms in Arizona have still been closed. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Now, I would like to point out that once again, Governor Ducey did exempt freedom of assembly and also religious practices from this order. So that's a good thing. I appreciate that, because I know there are other states where to this day they do not exempt religious services. And of course, they have been exempting protests apparently and looting in many of these states, not officially, but unofficially they've been exempting looting and protests and things like that. But in Arizona, protests are still okay, as they always have been, including with the stricter order that Governor Ducey issued a couple months ago. He did exempt freedom of assembly. He did exempt religious services, and that's the case with this. So this order really mostly applies to businesses. There are also some new regulations for pools, so public pools, those kinds of things at hotels. Obviously, he did specifically say water parks and tubing operations, they're shut down. So when it comes to the enforcement of this particular order, it's a little different, because we're not really talking about citing individuals so much as we are citing businesses and basically taking their license. So it says if any provision of this executive order or its application to any person or circumstance is held invalid by any court or competent jurisdiction, this invalidity does not affect any other provision or application of this executive order, which can be given effect without the invalid provision or application. And then it says, notwithstanding any other law or executive order, this executive order allows law enforcement or any regulatory agency pursuant to their regulatory authority to take immediate enforcement action against any business that fails to follow this executive order or any guidance issued by the Arizona Department of Health Services regarding COVID-19 for the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare, up to and including summary suspension for any license that the business holds. So this is more of a regulatory order aimed at businesses. Obviously, there's no class 1 misdemeanor that I see anywhere in here. I might have the emergency provision, but I didn't see that my first run through of this. So it looks like it's more geared towards basically suspending your business license as opposed to actually citing people or arresting them.
Alrighty. Look, on the theaters thing, I understand how you feel about that, but the thing is, at a theater, it's very easy to spread any kind of disease. And I understand there may only be a handful of theaters open right now, but that's not a reason to leave them open, because the reality is those are still, significant vectors, maybe not in, the aggregate, but relative to the size of the establishment and how many people are in there. If you have one person in there who has coronavirus, everybody's going to have coronavirus. That I think is the reality.
Show me the data on that. Show me the study on that, Pete, and then I'll consider that.
Show you the data on people sitting next to each other transmitting diseases more easily than if they're not sitting next to each other.
I know for a fact that the only theater open in my city, well, technically it's not in my city, technically it's on the Indian reservation, which means technically it can stay open, by the way, because this law wouldn't apply to the Indian reservation. But the one theater within my community that's open is Roadhouse Cinema, and they use they use assigned seating, so it's not open seating, and they developed a system so that they made sure when people were buying tickets that they would not be seated together, and that they're staggering the seating. So you can only sit together with people of your own party. You can't sit together with anybody else. In addition, the Salt River Indian Reservation requires people to wear masks. So I don't see a problem going to a place, a theater that has assigned seating, requires you to wear masks, and nobody's putting a gun to your head and making you go. I don't see any problem with it. We're talking about one theater. Like I said, all the massive theater chains in this state are closed. Yeah. And that was because they have no movies to show, because we basically destroyed the film industry. So the film industry is completely on hold right now.
Sure. So I don't see the difference between if it's 1 or 1,000 theaters, though. If one theater is contagious, if 1,000 theaters are contagious, one theater is contagious.
Well, I don't see the proof that you have that in that.
How would you measure that?
That somebody,
I think it's pretty self-evident.
Well, it's called contact tracing. I mean, there is a way that people do determine these things. It's not all theoretical. But my point again is that my only point is that I don't believe that can be argued as this is a big contributing factor to the problem. That's what I'm trying to say. I think you could argue bars are. I think you could definitely argue that bars are. I do have another article about several Scottsdale bars that closed prior to this order because they were specifically mentioned and publicly shamed by Governor Ducey. And all of those clubs and bars are actually in my community. They're actually in Old Town. And they all closed voluntarily before this order was even initiated. So there is that. But again, I just don't think that theaters are a huge contributing factor when hardly any of them are open to begin with. That's my only argument.
Yeah, but if there were only 3 bars open, couldn't you make the same argument about bars and say, why are we shutting down bars? There's only 3 of them open.
That wasn't the case. All the bars were open. All the bars have been open.
But what if they were?
There were 6 bars specifically that Governor Ducey publicly shamed and said were bad actors. That's what he called them. And most of those, not all of them, I believe 4 of the 6, actually closed on their own. They basically said, okay, probably for liability reasons, I would imagine, said we're going to close.